Let's fucking roll.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Here in the McBastard Studio here in FOCO, USA. You're listening to the SaltyMF GOAT podcast. Today, we're really excited to talk to somebody who's a good human being. He was a detective in his past, a coach, a businessman, an entrepreneur. So I want everybody to welcome Patrick Apoian. And so, Patrick, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so I was excited to have you on. You and I have kind of got to know each other through a couple venues, the gym. Your daughter was on our SaltyMF Player of the Week, and we started talking, and I did not know that you were a detective, and I don't know if you can say the city, but
City of Atlanta,
City of Atlanta, and you just started telling me some funny stories. So I really wanted to have you on. So I wanted to sing that song, Bad Boys, what you gonna do, what you gonna do. So I thought you'd be an awesome guest, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come by. So tell everybody a little bit about you. Like, how'd you get into the detective work? I mean, do you always want to be in that business, or?
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, when I was a little kid, you get family that's cops, and you grow up, growing up in New York, you always see cops. It's a little different up there. And it was a different time then. You grew up respecting law enforcement, and I just always wanted to do it. So when I moved down here, I started a business, and after a little while, I looked at my wife and I said, I think it's time. 2011 happened. I said, no, it's definitely time. I'm gonna go ahead and get into law enforcement.
That's great. And so you spent, what, 20 years, you said, in that?
It was 17 years. I was forced to retire due to injuries, which I'm sure we'll get into, but yeah, it's 17 years in law enforcement.
So, I mean, Atlanta's not really, I mean, Atlanta's pretty known for being violent, maybe not the most violent city, but, how was that being a detective, and what was probably the worst case you've ever been involved in, the strangest, the weirdest thing?
We could definitely get into some of that.
And then something that maybe was heartwarming, because I know we've talked, you've probably got hundreds of stories. So we kind of classify what's the worst thing you ever saw, probably the funniest or goofiest thing, and then the best outcome, for something was a shitty situation, but actually turned out maybe good. That might give some structure, and you can go wherever you want from there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, look, there have been days. First, let me just say, everybody says, Atlanta, oh my, you must have, that must have been really rough. It was a free ticket to the greatest show on earth. Every day. I swore that if I ever won the lottery, I would go into work for nothing. Just because some of the stuff you see, you can't make it up. It's the best. I've seen so many things. We had a call one time. I was probably 2004, 2005. I'm working morning watch, and I get on at 11 o'clock at night, and I get I don't know how far I can go. How PG-13 you want to keep
look,
this?
hey man, it's I don't know if there's anybody out there with their 7-year-old watching this show. Well, you might want we'll beep it out, but you can go into it, man.
So I get a call. First call of the night is they dispatched me to the Virginia Highlands. There's a guy in a parking lot, stark naked, amusing himself, keeping himself entertained, with a flashlight in his rectum.
Oh, nice.
And I went out there for that, and somebody came by later, and he had somebody field training, and long story short, we ended up locking the guy up, but the guy who was field training the young rookie, he turned around and he had gloves on, he picked up the flashlight, and he tossed it to the rookie. It hit the rookie in the chest, and he had all this gooey stuff on his uniform, this nice pristine uniform you just get out of the academy. So
welcome to the show.
Yeah, I was like, welcome on the job, kid.
God, that's my number one. That's the worst one. Yeah, I mean, anyways, poor guy. Poor guy. Maybe he got to get someone back later on. Well,
it's one of the things you have to go through. But no, it was a great career. I truly loved every minute of it, and I love the people. People say, wow, how could you deal with the things you saw or you had to deal with, or you know what? It didn't matter if you were a CEO at Coca-Cola or East Lake Golf Course coming through, or a crackhead on the street. I was treating you the same.
Yeah,
I'd give you the same amount of respect. and I got that back, tenfold. So many times I could have been in trouble, like fighting a perp or handling something and in some really, really rough neighborhoods. And you'd be amazed at some of the people that you drive by and say, there's no way that guy would ever help out the police.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I've talked to him for the last year and a half, and nothing but respect from me to him and vice versa. And, I'm fighting a perp, and next thing I know, this guy who never would help a cop in his life prior to meeting me, grabbing the guy from behind and body slamming him, and then just kind of walking away like he didn't want to be involved in it, but well, that took the fight out of the guy.
But
so,
he helped it,
Yeah, so.
I mean, I think that, even in any kind of business, I mean, I think probably people are a lot of off, maybe off when a policeman approaches because you're usually, there's something wrong, right? A traffic ticket or whatever it is. You're like, ah, shit, And so I think that to build a rapport and the kind of work you were in, specifically doing detective type work, I mean, you have to build a rapport, from I'm sure there were people obviously helping you guys out on cases that were on the street that weren't police.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, if you don't build that credibility, you're probably not going to be a very good detective as well, because they're not going to help you find out the facts you need to get to solve the case.
Yeah, no, I had people would sell drugs. I knew they were drug dealers. There was no questioning that. They had my cell phone number. And people would say, how are you going to give that guy your cell phone number? Is he going to call you in case he gets in trouble? No, he knows not to call me if he's in trouble. I'm not going to help him if he's in trouble. But if something goes down, he's not going to come up and talk to anybody on the street and say, hey, I saw this.
Right.
He'd get killed. He'd end up dead. But I could be back at the police precinct and doing my paperwork, and then all of a sudden my cell phone rings, and he's there saying, hey, look at so-and-so doing this. This is where he brought all the stuff that he stole from that house. So you'd be amazed. You give respect, you get respect back.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think it's kind of that funny. Policemen are people too. Drug dealers are people too. Software guys are people too, right? So I mean, the point that is true to a lot of that. And I think if regardless of where you came from, economic status or job position or whatever, if there's mutual respect, I mean, there's mutual respect. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you just, my feeling is across the sands of time and everything else, hey, look, we're at this point in our lives face to face talking to each other, and something brought us here. You give me respect. If I can help you, call me. If you vice versa. And it really it made my job a lot easier. It made my career easy.
Yeah. What was the brotherhood like? I mean, I know across really most of the services, firefighters, policemen, it's a pretty strong brotherhood because you guys are out there kind of, in some cases in some pretty maybe dangerous situations, other than, the poor new kid getting a flashlight thrown at him. But that's more paternal. But what was that like? Just because, I mean, was it?
Well, you can't, it's hard to describe because it's something that, unless you've been in it and have gone through it, you can't really, it's hard to, the old saying is, if I had to explain, you wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
So, but it's the best, like I guys go through things. I've gone through things, and you go on calls, and I can't come home and talk to my wife about what I just dealt with, and even if I do, all I'm doing is just venting. I might as well just, she'll say, oh, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that or something. And, and that's what it was like. But you know what, if I talk to one of the guys, he'd say, yeah, man, I remember I had this and, a similar situation. So for that, it bonds you, it brings you together. Like I tell people, if you look back, they talk about World War I and World War II, how those guys came back and they came back from the war and they kind of all went off to jobs and had careers and led productive lives. And then the guys came back from Vietnam, and it really affected a lot of them. And some of them ended up homeless or on the streets or addicted to drugs. And I really truly believe that the difference is that in World War I and World War II, they came back on ships. They didn't come back, and in 10 hours they were on their way home.
Yeah.
Those guys came back on ships, so they were talking about it over a 2-3 week period where you were able to get a lot of that out, and that really helps you. That's what the brotherhood, quote unquote, is really all about. But I think with that, the other side of the coin is when you see a guy that's really just not fit for the job, it makes it a little harder because I've had these come to Jesus meetings with a couple of guys and said, I don't think this job is for you. I think you need to look into something else. And, there was a time in my career I had to go down to internal affairs and say, hey, this guy shouldn't be on the street. He should not be working the street. I did that once, and lo and behold, he ended up getting charged with some pretty serious felonies a little later on.
Did he get eye of that detective in you?
Yeah.
The detective and you pull it out.
Yeah.
What was maybe like your favorite case you ever worked on, like that you're like, yeah, I really want this case. I'm going to get this, son of a bitch or whatever. Like, what was a case like where you can remember back, that, and I'm assuming like some of these cases are still open. Like, it's not like case closed. You may work on something for months or years or things like that. So
yeah, no, they say every officer, every cop, every detective, they have that one call that just stays with them. Well, back years ago, Mark Wahlberg expressed interest and kind of made a comment about doing a movie about my career. So there's actually a script out, and in the script, it touches on 4 different calls that really changed my life. One of them was I went to a call for a child that was a runaway from DFACS, from Children and Family Services, Family and Children Services. And I was the one who found her. She was 5 years old, and I brought her and got her lunch. She was out all day. It was the middle of summer. She was, half dehydrated and really hungry, been out hours and hours in the hot sun. And all she kept saying was, don't take me back. Please don't take me back. And I ended up had to take her back to the house, and I saw the conditions, and I said to her caseworker, I said, she cannot stay here.
yeah.
And she said, what do you want me to do with her? And I said, well, I'll take her home.
Right.
And she said, well, have you been through any of the training? And I said, no, I haven't been through any of the training. And she said, well, then you can't. And I went home that night, and I sat on the edge of my son's bed, and all the emotion hit me about what I'd seen. These people were just keeping this child just strictly for the check at the end of the month. And there were multiple children there. And I just said, this poor kid doesn't have a chance. And my wife came in, and she said, what's going on? Everything okay? And my son was sound asleep, and I was just looking at him, and I was just overcome with emotion. I said to my wife, we're adopting a kid from foster care. And we started everything right then and there. And,
awesome.
and I said, even if it's just one kid, we're going to change that one kid's life, and we're going to, make a difference.
That's awesome.
So that was one call. And then the way I wrapped up my career was pretty special too.
Yeah. So you, we were talking about kind of, not only the detective side, but you've gone on and you love the sport of lacrosse, and
oh yeah,
you've coached lacrosse, and you've coached, thousands of girls and boys and kids in lacrosse. And I really like that about you. It's, what's the transition like when I coached for a long time for kids, like where you come from something that may have been kind of seedy, horrific or whatever, and then you're coming home and coaching all these kids that for somewhat are happy and having a good time. Was it easy for you to leave kind of the job behind? Was that like your space where you could let it all go?
For me, it was. That was like my, like you say, it was coming home. It was getting away. It was, luckily, I work 45 minutes away I live 45 minutes away from where I worked, and I'd have that time to decompress. And by the time I'd get home, and my son was my life before my daughter came along, before we adopted her. And he was my whole world, and just getting to spend time with him and seeing his friends and everything. All the, Bill Burr, the comedian, every cop can relate to this. He talks about how his wife says, "You're such an animal. You go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds." And he said, "Well, I idle at 75, where I idle at." That's when you're at the job. That's what you're doing. You literally idle at 75 all day long. It's like being in. I've heard it described as being in road rage, where somebody cuts you off, and you're like, your blood pressure goes up, it kicks in, and you're angry. That's what it's like all day for a cop.
Yeah.
You're literally, that's the level you're operating on, because you have to be at a higher sense of awareness. The average police officer only lives to 58 years of age.
Jeez.
So you're there, but when I'd come home, it'd be like, all that's gone. And this is my time to relax. And I always found it really hard to get on the kids when they're screwing around and everything else. And my feeling was just let them have fun.
Yeah.
That's why I like lacrosse. I coached football, and I just would look at parents and I'd be like, your kid is 7 and you're grabbing him by the face mask and screaming in his face. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And by the way, he's probably not going to I'll put $1 million. He's not going to the NFL.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So
I coached a kid one time. I won't say a name. It's a while back. So, and the guy, they might've been 8 or 9. And this guy had his kid over the summer, like literally paid lessons with like an ex NFL quarterback. So the kid's dropping, 7 steps. Well, I mean, we're like 8 or 9. I mean, you just need to take 2 steps back and throw it because you don't have the arm and the time. But I just remember thinking, like, my God, I mean, you're probably paying some guy 10 to 15 grand for an 8 or 9-year-old to learn how to take 7 steps. And, he's not going to go through his progressions. If he just throws to the one kid I want on a slant real quick, that's a win. He can get that. So people can be insane. And
exactly.
We could have a whole podcast on parent stories.
Oh yeah. I think one of the, obviously every kid is different, and I've loved every kid that's come through, but the one season I coached football, and I won't mention his name, but he's a local kid here, and he goes to UGA now, and it was his first season ever playing football, and he plays for the Bulldogs now, and he signed a jersey for me, and he hated the game. He played offense, I coached defense, and he hated the game and didn't want to play. He was 7, and his parents were like, you got to play. So finally I said, let me take him on the defense. And we had so much fun the rest of the season. He signed a jersey to me his freshman year that says, to coach, thanks for making me fall in love with the game. And then he signed his name, and I just thought that's awesome. That's like one of my most prized possessions.
Yeah, it means you did your job. I mean, it's funny because I remember I was talking to a parent, and the kids were 5 and 6. My kids are from 31 down to 18, so I coached a lot of different kids. And one of the young parents was like, well, what's a successful season at this age? I said, well, if all those little guys come up to the line at the end of the year and get in their stance, that's 100. We got an A+.
Yeah.
And he was like, are you serious? I'm like, absolutely. If they all work together, walk up, get in their stance, fire off, that's a win. So you spend 2.5 months doing that. It's just the perception of in life, we see what really good looks like in pro or college or whatever, and don't really realize the fundamental steps to get to that phase, or that takes thousands of hours of training, process, coaching, whatever, for that kid to catch that one pass in the Super Bowl. And people just don't
see it. Yeah. No, and I'm the same way.
They're gonna get mad at me. I keep knocking my mic around. Sorry, guys.
I always tell it, like, now I coach girls lacrosse, and I coach football and basketball, and you name it, I've coached it, and everything except soccer, because I don't think that's a sport. We could debate that. But, I tell the kids all the time that scoreboard means absolutely nothing to me.
Yeah.
You mean everything to me. And I just ask for your effort, and I ask for your time, and I'm going to care about you 1,000,000 times more than I'm ever going to care about anything that scoreboard says.
It's funny how the toughest guys, are really the softest guys,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, the people like, the cops or the military guys, the Green Berets, the SEALs, like, they're tough in certain instances, but really they're pretty soft-hearted when it comes to things like coaching or kids or athletics. So that's funny because it's a trait I see a lot in big burly dudes. So.
Well, Jordan Peterson, I'm sure everybody's heard of Jordan Peterson by now. If you haven't, you live under a rock. But he says, it's if you're not, it's not virtuous to be kind if you're incapable of violence.
Yeah.
But if you're capable of great violence, then it's a virtue, So it really is true, because, like, I can turn it on. I have no problem turning it on, but I don't like to.
Yeah.
And I choose not to now. But I was coaching one time. We were playing over at a park off Sharon Road, and there was somebody in the woods. We had our kids, not just my kid. I had other kids on the field, and we're playing a game, and somebody's shooting an AR-15 in the woods with target practice. And I cleared all the kids off the field, and we get all the kids, but all they are is 60 yards away now.
Yeah.
It's still 60
Common
yards.
sense,
So I walked into the woods, and I confronted the guy, and some of the parents were like, "Are you insane?" I said, "Well, yeah, when it comes to the kids, yeah, I'm insane."
Well, he was just an idiot.
Yeah. So, if push would have come to shove, then it would have gotten bad. But I wasn't going to take the chance on one of the kids getting
Oh
hurt.
yeah, absolutely not. Well, I mean, hey, look, you can shoot your AR-15, which I have ARs as well. You can shoot them wherever you want, but don't shoot them there.
Yeah, he's just a stupid person.
Get out, go to the gun range or outside.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got a nice little collection of pew-pews myself.
Yeah. It's just don't be an idiot. That's the rule here. So
irresponsible.
So another thing that we were talking about that I thought was a really, I didn't know that about you, but you were injured pretty badly.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking about, kind of just life things and philosophical things, and a lot of things goes on in the world right now. People are, there's war, there's a lot of things going on that are really, people are nervous, they're scared, they're, they don't know what to do, but like the will to live is so important and the reason to live. And you were telling a pretty good story. I'd love for you to share that if you feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I share it because somebody could be going through something similar. So if they're going through something similar, I just want them to know that I'm no better than them. I'm no more special than them. And if I made it through, you can make it through. But back on July 21st of 2011, I was working a neighborhood security job, and a detective came across the radio from Midtown Atlanta and asked if anybody was in the area of this intersection. And I was literally maybe 500 yards away. And I stopped my car and I got on the radio. I said, "Yeah, I'm literally headed that way. What's going on?" And he said that they had had a robbery in Midtown, and they gave me the description of the suspect. And he said the GPS on the cell phone is coming up at that intersection. And I said, "Oh, okay, I'll go ahead and go." But I said, the only thing that's up there is a barbershop. And I knew the brothers sold dope out of it, but they never caused any trouble, and I don't think it was anything harder that they were selling. So I kind of left them alone. And he gave me the description, and it was a black male with short hair. And we walked in, and there were three guys in there. By this time, the beat officer had gotten there, and the guy had short hair. Well, the two guys that worked in the place had long dreadlocks, and they were, like I said, never had any problem with them. And I saw this guy, he fit the description, clothing, everything to a T. And, he gets up, we walked in, and he got up and he started walking out. And I said, "Just ask him his name." So just, "Hey, what's your name?" And I just, what's your date of birth? That's it. And I, with no intent to lock him up, didn't want to put cuffs on him, didn't want to do anything. The other guy ran him just to make sure he came back on file, because we were going to give the information to the other detective to put in a photo lineup. And I said, what's in your pocket? I could see the outline of a cell phone. I said, "That's not a knife or a gun, is it?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Okay." And you could see that he got scared, like, I just pointed to the cell phone that he just stole. And he turned around and he pushed me and the other guy. And when he pushed us, now we have charges on him because he assaulted us. And he ran out and he jumped into the passenger seat of a Honda. And the woman was in the driver's seat. She started yelling, "What are you doing? Get out," and this and that and the other thing. And there were two little children in the back seat. And the other officer was in front of me. And the guy that we were talking to, he had thrown his left leg over by the driver's seat, by the gas pedal and everything. And he kind of was straddling the stick shift. And I'm holding him around the jaw. I'm squeezing his jaw, trying to pull him out. And the other guy's trying to wrestle with him. And we couldn't move him. He's holding onto the steering wheel pretty well. And he put his hand on the center console, which was right between his legs. So when he put his hand on the center console, I don't know if he knows this girl or if this is his car or what the deal is. My only concern was at that point, and it was within a split second, I'm in the passenger side door. Like I said, the door is right at my right shoulder. And was if he pulled out a gun, he could have shot Hayes. Yeah. So I let go of him, and I kind of moved to the back window to get a better angle on him. I pulled my gun out. And when I did that, the girl got out of the driver's seat. And he threw the car in reverse and hit the gas pedal. Well, like within a split second, I holstered my gun and tried to grab the door and hold on to the door and the roof of the car. and jump up, and it knocked me down. And when I hit the ground, the front passenger tire was turned, and it lodged my foot up in the wheel well, and it kind of like partially ripped my foot off from the heel, and then the tire just rolled up my shin, over my pelvis, up my chest, and I was supposed to be at jiu-jitsu that night, and luckily, let me shrimp out of the way. As it starts coming, I just kind of shrimped and tried to get my head out of the way, and I got my head out of the way, and it went over my left shoulder, but it had crushed me pretty good. I mean, it was, trying to change the oil on a Honda going 10 miles an hour is not smart.
Yeah.
So, the car went backwards, hit a parked truck. The other officer fell out of the passenger seat. He had no idea what was going on, what had just happened, because he was, focused on struggling with the guy. And I'm laying there, and I looked up, and now I know, like, he's going to throw this and drive, and he's going over me to get out of it. And all the adrenaline is just going through me. There was no pain. I didn't feel anything. I just felt like a burn in my ankle.
Yeah.
And I stood up. I got up. I stood up. And I moved off to the side, and he drove past me, and I chased him for about 10 or 15 feet, and I collapsed. I just couldn't move. I couldn't run. And he came running up, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm hurt pretty bad. I think I'm hurt pretty bad. I can't hardly breathe." And he said, "What happened?" I said, "The car went over me." He said, "What?" And I was clicking my radio, and my radio was completely just destroyed.
Toast.
And he got on the radio. He put up a help call, said officer down. And, my first thought was, I felt my chest, and I could feel like, I guess they call it like a flail chest, like where your sternum is like floating, or whatever. And I was like, wow, I probably have internal bleeding. I just don't know it. And so my first thought was to call my wife and my 7-year-old son. And I teased the firefighters because, a few years prior to this, about 3 years prior to this, I had started a foundation for police officers and firefighters who were seriously hurt or ill, like with cancer and things like that, where we would help raise money to kind of offset their bills. So the firefighters were there before, and I think they were there before any of the other cops. And I was joking with them, and I said, "Oh, you guys must have been on your way to lunch." And I think they were. I think they were like literally on their way to lunch when the call came in. And they were like, it was just that road was like on the way to get lunch. And they were the first ones there. And I remember them taking my vitals and them saying, he's low, which in Atlanta is like, he's low. He might not make it. So I called my wife and my 7-year-old, and my wife answered the phone, and right away I always teased my wife because she didn't like to cook, so she liked to order takeout, and I think she said she was cooking chicken parmesan, which is my favorite, and she said, "I'm cooking chicken parmesan. What time are you going to be home?" And I said, "Hey, wait, I'm not coming home. I don't know that I'm going to make it." And she said to me, she said, "Well, what happened?" I said, I'm hurt pretty bad. I don't know if I'm going to make it." And she said, "Why are you calling me? Call 911. And I said, "I am 911. Like I am 911. I'm calling to tell you that I'm hurt and I'm not going to make it." And, obviously she's shocked and she's upset. And I said, "Listen, I don't know if I'm going to be conscious much longer. I don't know what's going on, but I need to tell Joey goodbye." And she called my son, and he was playing video games and doing typical kid stuff. And he came in, and I said, "Hey, pal, listen." He said, "Hey, Dad," and I said, "Hey, pal, listen, I need you to make me a promise that you're always going to remember how much Daddy loves you." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I know, Dad. I love you too. I promise." And then he started to go back to hand my wife the phone. I said, "Hey, stop. Listen, this is serious. I need you to make me a promise right here, right now. You have to promise me that you're always going to remember how much Daddy loves you, no matter what happens today." And like I was telling you earlier, it was in that split second, I heard that little 7-year-old boy who the world was just video games and cartoons.
Yeah.
I heard that leave, and like a little man take his place, like a little man where this world wasn't just about cookies and milk and snack time. It was about real world stuff. And I heard him in his place. And to this day, my son is not the same kid, you know, like he was never the same kid after that. Like life bothered him after that. He would overthink things. And he said, I promise, Dad, I promise I'll always remember how much you love me. And we got to the hospital, and well, when I was there, you know, I remember I was laying on the ground and I didn't hear anything. And I was looking up at the clouds, and it was a cloud that was shaped like Long Island, which is where I'm from. And I just remember focusing on that cloud. I didn't hear anything. I don't remember anybody being there other than the other officer that was there, and then the firefighters. And I remember it was all peaceful and quiet. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm okay. You know, if you want to take me now, I'm good to go. And while I'm sitting there, or laying there, I just thought to myself, I got a 7-year-old at home. There's nobody's going to fucking raise my kid. Yeah. And I thought, if you take me today, God, I am going to tear up the place when I get there, you know? And it was within an instant that, you know, I could hear everything. I could see everything. Everything was good. And there was actually an officer on his knees screaming in my ear. He, screaming in my ear, like, don't you fucking die on me. Don't you die. And I remember turning to him and saying, can you stop screaming in my ear? You know? And you know, I had my duty belt on. They were trying to get my duty belt off, and they wanted to cut it. Yeah. That was the other thing. And they wanted to cut it. Here I am with, I literally had, so I go list some of my injuries. I had, my foot was partially torn off. My shin bones on my right ankle were broken. My pelvis was broken in 3 places. My L4 and my L5 and my spinal cord are broken, which the doctors will tell you that if you break one of those, the chances are 1 in a million that you're ever going to walk again, which for me to have fractures, 2 of them, and I'm walking. And then all my ribs are broken. My right shoulder is completely destroyed. Everything in it is torn, and I have left wrist damage. And I remember them saying, we got to cut his duty belt off. And those things are $45, well, were $45 back then. I remember thinking, that's fucking $45, you know? And I went to arch my back. I said, all right, move it, take it. And they said, what do you mean? I said, slide it out. And they said, well, we can't. I said, well, I'm arching my back for you. And they said, you're not moving. And when I was laying there, my hips, I could feel my hips were pointed off to the right. Yeah. And my shoulders were laying on the ground, but my hips were pointed a different direction. Yeah. And it was the weirdest thing. And then they went to cut it, and I said, no, I'm arching my back no matter what. And I put my hands down, and I lifted my back just enough, and that was like I'm not paying $45, which was the stupidest thing in the world I could have done, because I really could have made myself paralyzed. But, you know, I made it through, and it was 3.5 years of vigorous physical therapy, 14 medical procedures. Still to this day, I still do physical therapy. Every couple of years, my shoulder just will start to give way. And yesterday morning, I was in physical therapy because of it, and it's 12 years later. But I made it through. My son, you know, my wife got to the hospital, and my son came to see me, and I'll never forget my son coming to see me. And I was just, you know, it was a mixed bag for me, because it's all I wanted to do was see my son. Yeah. And we were supposed to go see, I think it was the Avengers was opening that weekend. And we were supposed to go see that. And I was like, you know, we're going, we were looking so forward to that. And I just wanted to see him, you know, just, and when he came to the hospital, I remember him just walking in, and I just saw the look on his face, and he came up to my bed, and I was just so happy to see him, but I was in a massive amount of pain. Yeah, but. And his eyes filled up with tears, and he looked at me and he said, Dad, I can't stay in this room. It's too dusty in here. And he said, I got to go outside. And my mother-in-law took him out into the hall. He just didn't want to cry. He didn't want to cry. Yeah. So, but, you know, one of the things when I was on the floor, on the ground at my accident, they said, let us give you something for the pain. And I said, no. I said, if I can feel the pain, I will see my son again. As long as I can feel pain, I will see my son again. That was my whole mindset. And then about 4 o'clock, this happened about 5 in the afternoon, and about 4 in the morning, everybody left. My wife had gone home, and I was stabilized and everything. And they said, the nurse said, let me give you something. And I said, no. And she said, let me give you the amount of morphine that they would give to like a kid with a broken arm. So I said, okay. So I went right to sleep. And then the next day I woke up and, I woke up in a massive amount of pain. I'm hitting the button, for her to come in there, and she gave me something. I remember just going right out. And then later on I woke up during the day and she gave me something again and I went right out. But then she woke me up and she said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, well, why'd you wake me up? And it wasn't that I went to sleep. It was I passed out. My blood pressure dropped to 70/40. And they determined that I was allergic to opioids.
Oh, shit.
So I couldn't take painkillers. So I faced all of this with no painkillers, which thank God, because if you've seen Painkiller on Netflix, you know what they were doing. And this was right around the time that everybody was taking OxyContin and all that stuff.
I've had several friends that have passed on because of that.
Yeah.
Had injuries.
Yeah.
They weren't drug addicts, weren't addicts at all, and had some pretty significant surgeries over a period of time, and it'll get you.
Yeah, thank God. I you know what, I look back and I say, I am so fortunate that was the case, because I had no idea that would have been, my downfall or anything. So I'm really lucky in that regard,
So obviously after that, being injured, the detective work was, was over. So you found another passion and you got into business, right? I mean, you guys you're entrepreneurs, you have your own business.
Well, I did. Now, I stayed on with Atlanta for a little while. I came back. I started their peer support program with a sergeant and another guy who's a major now, for cops when they're injured, because there was no support system in place at the time. So they had that going. And then I retired from Atlanta, and then I went to work for a county that I won't mention. And if I could just tell the story, this was the last call I ever went on. This wrapped up my career, and it was so perfect. I couldn't ask for a better way to wrap up my career, because when I went through everything with the injuries and everything else, you go through the PTSD, you're waking up in the middle of the night, night sweats and the pain, you're constantly in pain, and you just feel like it's never going to end. You really genuinely feel like nobody can understand what you're going through. And there were times where I just wanted to end it all and like seriously, like, get on the crutches and get out in my car and drive away and, with my gun and everything else. And I truly wanted to end it all. And we went and it was almost like it was divine intervention. It was like God saying, listen, this is how you're going to wrap up your career so that you'll feel like you didn't leave something hanging or something. We got a call one night, and it was my last day. I'd already given my notice. I said, I'm done. And it was about 2 a.m. And a guy called up and said his wife was pregnant with their first child, and she was bleeding. She needed to go to the hospital. She needed an ambulance. So we got there, and she came walking out, and she said, hurry up, we need to go. And the door shut behind her, and she got in the ambulance, and I was there with the supervisor, and they're like, okay, let's just get your vitals and we'll get you stabilized, and we'll go ahead and get headed to the hospital. And I said, no, we're not going anywhere. You tell me what's really going on. And she looked at me and said, what are you talking about? I said, no. I said, your husband called 911. And she said, yeah, he called it in. I said, where is he? She said, he's in the house. And I said, there's no fucking way my wife is pregnant with their first kid.
Yeah, that I'd be sitting in the house.
Sitting in the house. And so you tell me what's really going on. What's the truth? And she got like really, you could tell there was something more to it. And everybody's looking at me like I'm the biggest asshole in the world,
This guy from Long Island. What
yeah, this piece of shit New Yorker. And son of a bitch. And so I turned around. So I said, I'll go ask him. So I went to the door and I knocked on the door, and he was a big dude. And over his shoulder, I could see the Marine Corps logo on the wall. And he also had a firefighter logo on the wall. So I knew, all right, he's a brother, and so what's going on? And he just went up and down me one side to the other about getting his wife to the hospital. Like, why was I in his face? And he was a pretty big dude. And so I went back and I said, he said, I needed to talk to you and find out what was really going on. And she broke down crying. And now everybody's still looking at me like, you are the most insensitive son of a bitch in the world. And I said, she said, he wants to kill himself. And he told me that if I stick around, he's taking me out because he's determined to kill himself. And if I told you guys, he was going to take you out too. So being I had the charity and the foundation where we were helping cops, we helped cops all over the metro Atlanta area. So I knew a lot of people. And I went back up and I knocked. And so the supervisor was like, oh, crap, I wasn't ready for this. Yeah. Sitting there going, what do we do? Do we call, it's 2:00 in the morning. You're in a little country sheriff's department. And I said, no, we don't have time to call anybody. Let me handle it. I was a hostage negotiator with Atlanta. I've been through the training. I kind of have an idea of how I want to talk to him. So I went up and I talked to him and I knocked on the door, and now he's hot, And I said, hey, what's going on? I said, so he's hot. And why isn't she gone yet? I said, I got a scenario to run by. I want to know what department do you work for? And he tells me the department. I said, oh man, I said, do you know my friend so-and-so that works there? And I remember if he said he was his captain or his lieutenant or what. And I said, well, he's a good friend of mine. I said, I pulled out my phone and I showed him his number. I said, he's a really good friend of mine. I said, so here's what is going to happen. One of two things. I'm going to call him and he's going to give me his word that you're going to have the next few days off and nobody's going to ever ask you anything about it. Or I'm going to lock you up for domestic violence. You're going to sit in jail for 3 days. And then when you come out, you're not going to have a career and you're not going to have suicidal thoughts. So we went back and forth, like what do you care? What do you care? And I said, well, man, I've been in your shoes. I've been where you're at. And he said, you don't really care. You don't really give a shit. And I said, dude, I fucking do. I wouldn't be at this door. And, you told your wife you were going to take one of us out. And so he thought about it and he looked at me, and now he's a big dude. And I mean, he would have bounced me off the hood of my car. But he turned around and he looked at me and he said, you really do care? I said, yeah, I do. It's not happening for you tonight. So what's it going to be? And he said, I'll go to the hospital. So she came in the house. She wasn't bleeding or anything. She came in the house and he went and got help. And like 2 months later, it was just before Christmas, I get a Facebook message and I get the alert on my phone. I pick up my phone and I open it up and it's a picture of him and his newborn daughter sitting with Santa Claus. And he said, this one always hits me. He said, she would not have a father today and I wouldn't have a daughter if it wasn't for you. And that was like the coolest way to end my career that I ever could have asked for. Because had I ended it on some bullshit, here's your ticket, or your car accident, or your dog is running off the leash, that would have been like a shitty. But that was that made me feel like I made a difference. So that was like the coolest way to end it.
That's awesome.
So, but now I'm in business for myself, and thank God, knock wood, I've been rocking it. So.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's going well.
Well, man, I think you're obviously a good human being, so I really appreciate you being on the show. You got anything else for our listeners out there? Anything you want to?
No. I just I started a business called Pure One Services, and we're looking to franchise. And if you're interested in doing mold remediation,
any
or water
franchisees
damage
out there you want to get in there, Pure One. Well, hey, give a shout out to it. So tell them where they can find out about your business.
It's pureoneservices.com. I'm on Twitter too, Detective Pat. So I try to tweet out positive messages every day. And, but I don't mix business. I don't do politics on Twitter if I can help it, follow me. But listen, if you're looking for a career change, pureoneservices.com, give me a call.
That's awesome. And the guy's from Long Island. He's a pretty good guy. I mean, us Georgia guys, we hear the New Yorkers like, they're moving down here. So, hey, Salty Nation, we were talking with Pat Apoian today. Detective Pat. He's a great guy, good human being. Hope you enjoy the show. We'll see you next week. Let's go.
Says, hey ho!